Hey guys, so I wanted to talk to you today about getting started with Davinci Resolve and tell you a little bit about how things went for me going from the Mac to the PC, going from Final Cut to Davinci, and some of the things that I noticed. And I wanted to set expectations for you guys because I know that I had some really high expectations for Davinci with the fast machine, and I was a little disappointed in some of the things, and I'm slowly getting over some of the other things, and I'm becoming to see the light of Davinci Resolve and the power of it. My machine was a 2013 Mac. It was a quad-core i7, 32 gig of RAM. It had a 4 gig video card in there. I don't really know what kind it was, but it was pretty much as fast as you could get for 2013. And that machine has been very good. Not even just okay, but very good for 1080p timeline editing. And it's pretty darn good for 4K. Sometimes I find myself having to generate optimized media and walking away from the machine, letting it get settled in, and then I can go back and work on it pretty snappy and quick. But once I started getting to more intense and deeper bit depth files, like in my Lumix G9, I started to run into slowness on the Final Cut aspect, but it wasn't terrible. It was still very, very manageable. And then I decided I wanted to try Davinci Resolve for some of the different editing aspects, and I put it on that machine, and it just was not very smooth or fast at all. It was kind of slow, and I had to optimize everything before I would even get started and walk away from the machine for an hour, hour and a half, just to let it sit there and get all the files ready to work with. And then I would be running out of space. And honestly, you need a beast of a machine for Davinci to have a really smooth, like if you want a buttery, slippery experience like you have in Final Cut, first off, Final Cut on its best machine and Davinci on its best machine, I think Final Cut's going to beat Davinci in terms of smoothness and like feel of the interface any day of the week. They just have optimized that software to that hardware so perfectly that it works great. But that's not to say that Davinci's not worth the extra effort, because you can get it to work super, super great, and to the point where you don't really even care about any deficiencies that it might have compared to Final Cut, because the gains you get from the editing abilities and the fine tuning that you can do all within one editing suite is immense with Davinci. And I haven't even scratched the surface on what I can do with Davinci, so I don't want to send a bad signal like, oh, I don't like it as much or anything like that. So I have a pretty nice machine for Davinci, and I can do 4K and 1080 fairly quickly and smoothly, and I rarely have to optimize media to do the work. But sometimes if I get intense with color grading and different types of masking and effects, then I have to usually render out those files to optimize media to make it run smoother. So that's why I wanted to take a few minutes, talk about some of the new things in 16.2, which is a new release just out for a day or two, and then tell you how to get your system set up or your project set up to work on whatever system as well as it can through the optimized media system. So take a look at what I do here in just a second on the screen, and hopefully it helps you guys out. Let me know what else you want to know, and I'll show you. Okay, here we are at the Davinci canvas, and let's pretend you guys are like me and you probably double-clicked the program and just picked any old project that was on the front there and just went straight to this point in your program, and you're going, okay, now what do I do? There's something you need to do. You need to kind of back up before you go too far into this. And I'm going to assume that your computer's not super duper fast yet. So let's just pretend you're playing around with Davinci Resolve. And the other assumption is I'm going to assume that you're using for the purchased Davinci Resolve, because the free version has some limitations with the hardware integrations. And I would recommend, if you're going to go Davinci Resolve, mess around with the free one for a little while and then buy the full version, because you're going to get a lot more utility out of the full version than you will the free version. It's worth it, and it's lifetime updates. It's just like Final Cut, and you won't regret it, I promise. But let's just say this is the Untitled project. We're not going to get into naming it or doing anything fancy yet, but you are on what's called the cut page. And if you look down at the bottom, you have different pages. You've got the, what is this page? The media page, the cut page, the edit page, the fusion page, which we're not going to go to today, color, and Fairlight, which is audio, and then deliver. So it's pretty streamlined the way that it works. So if you're on the cut page, let's go over here to the left and let's go to the media page. This is a place where all your source media is located when you import. And you can add a new location. So I can go over here to say like my G drive and say I want to make sure fishing media is always available quickly. So before you start opening and working on a new project, you need to do a couple things that I think are very important before you even input the media into this project. You come down here to this little gear wheel down here and you click that and you pick the resolution of your project. So for today's example, we're going to pick 1920 by 1080, but you can also pick any myriad of different resolutions, all the way up to full HD, 8K, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to do 1920 by 1080. And the most important thing, or one of the most important things you can do, designating your actual frame rate. So if you're using a camera like a Panasonic and it's a 30 frame camera, 30 frames a second, it's actually 2997. And I do the playback the same at 29.97. And then when you view your monitoring, like when you're monitoring your playback and stuff on your monitor, you want to view that back at a similar frame rate, I would think. So I just come down here and pick 1080 2997. I leave everything else alone. Now, one thing here, optimize media resolution. You can go with the original, half, quarter. You can pick. I just stick with original, and then I go with DNX HR LB, low band. So this is about as low and easy on your computer as you can get. Check these boxes here and go down to 1 second here. Pick a good fast location for your cache clips. I have M.2 drives, which are those little teeny stick drives that are mounted to the motherboard, and I use H for that. So you can save this. And the other thing you want to do is when you start a project, you want to just save project as and name it right away. So let's say Joe's sample, just so we don't lose ourselves. And then it will auto-save. There's also ways to set this auto-save stuff up, but we'll get to that later. And then for playback, you use optimize media if available is checked. You go to proxy mode. If you want to be faster on a slower machine, I usually cut that to half resolution. And then for render cache, I go to user, and then playback, I do, yeah, everything's cool. So you have to remember when you're in proxy mode to change back your resolution to off, so you're not in proxy mode when you go to the output page later when the project is done. You're ready to roll. And now what you do is you grab your data, and let's just grab a couple random files, and let's drag them down into this window below. And it says, hey, these frame rates are different than your frame rates. And this could be because let's say you have a 30 frame project, but you have 60 frame footage and you're going to use some slow motion down the road with this footage. Then yeah, the footage is a different frame rate. And this asks you, do you want to change the project? Because you can't change it once you bring everything in to a different frame rate. And you say, no, I don't want to change it because I know that it's 60 frames. I'm just going to use it differently, or I'll convert it to 30 frames if I need to. So you just bring those in. And here's where you can speed up your computer a great deal. You can grab these files, like right here, and let's do this one only. Let's see. Let's find the very shortest one. 32. Okay, this is smaller. This file right here is a shorter file. So let's right-click that and take a look at what you can do. Then you have to actually tell it to generate optimized media. See, like Final Cut would just go to town and start in the background doing the optimized media creation if you told it to. But this program wants you to tell it to do it. And so let's just do one file so it doesn't take up too much time. Generate optimized media. And pretty much when you do this, it renders your program kind of useless. It won't work. So what I usually like to do is bring all the media that I think I'm going to need in this project. Now, what I used to do was I used to generate optimized media for everything that I imported. And I realized later that you can work pretty far along without optimized media. And then down the road, whatever's in your timeline to speed things up, you could grab each of those files in your timeline and generate optimized media. Okay, so our file has gone ahead and rendered out the optimized media. So we're ready to move to the cut page. But just before we go, let's refresh what we did here. Remember, we went to the gear wheel. We went to the project settings. And we set up our resolution, our frame rate, and all of our viewing frame rates matched. And then we moved down here and we said for the optimized media and render cache, we want original resolution. We're going to use low band for optimize and render cache. We're going to enable background caching after only 1 second. And then we're going to automatically cache transitions and composites and fusion effects. And this is where we're going to put the stuff. So that stuff's all done. We didn't change anything, so cancel there. And then for playback, we're going to use the optimized media if available. And we're going to work in proxy mode at half resolution. And we're going to render the cache as the user setting. So those settings are crucial to making this work a little bit better for you on any machine. It's going to help you on any machine you work on. So let's go over here to the cut page. And the one that we converted was 294. So if we go over here and find 294, if you notice how like your selections kind of follow through these pages. So like if you have this clip selected here and you go to the cut page, that same clip is selected there. So it's read only by virtue that you had that selected on the previous page, which is kind of nice. These little linked pages follow through, which is really cool. So if you select this here or you select that there, you might say, well, I don't get what's going on. These are just your clips. Now you can double click a clip and that will take you to a preview window. And you can see this is very slippery. Now if you look at this one, it's not as slippery as the optimized media. Remember we did optimized media for this one. So this acts more like Final Cut does. And this one is not optimized, so it's kind of like herky-jerky. So we'll drop them down in the timeline, take a look. So one thing I would tell you to do, first and foremost, is to get to a website where you can get some shortcut printouts for Davinci Resolve, because the shortcuts on the keyboard are going to save you an immense amount of time. So like you could go up here, grab this clip, drag it all the way down, drop it, let it go. You know, it's just like a whole lot of like muscle movement and stuff. But the better way to do it, in my opinion, is grab that clip, hit F12. It's down in there. On Windows Final Cut Pro, you'd hit E, which is append to end. So there's all different types of little shortcuts you can do. Now on this cut page, which is really strange to me at first, is you get a big version down below and a small version up above. But the small version gives you the whole view of the whole project. So your cursor's here, and you move it around, and you notice down below the clip is sliding under the playhead. Now, if that drives you nuts, let's say you make like a cut, and then you go over here and you make a cut, and you delete a piece, and you ripple delete. And let's say like right here, like in this section, you want to play around with this cut and move around it with your playhead. You can go over here and click this button, and it frees up your playhead. And now where you click, it goes. You can move it around like you normally would feel like you could. So if you want to do some fine tuning in an area, you can knock it loose. But I recommend leaving it locked for the most part. And I can just roll back and forth and usually find it. The other thing that you'll notice too, you see that little dancing V right there? That's telling you that if there's an automated, like a transition or something that you apply, that's going to be set at that location, because that's the closest location to this, or the closest gap to this playhead. So if you notice back here in the media pool, we have put this file down in there. And if we hit the space bar, it plays right off the bat. See, stop.
This pond is so weird, man.
There's no startup time, right? It just works perfectly. So if you click this, let's get rid of this file. And let's put the one that's not optimized down here. Now when you click it, it kind of jumps a little and then catches up and then finds itself. So if you go here and you click play, it takes a minute, it coughs, it stutters, and then it catches up. Now this, I'm telling you, this is a Ryzen 7 machine with 32 megahertz, 32 gig of RAM. This is no slouchy machine, and it still is tough for this program to just start playing smoothly like Final Cut does on an unoptimized clip. Now, keep in mind, if you go back to the optimized clip and you bring it down here,
Did you lose
it goes right away.
Bait?
I mean, it plays solid as a rock no matter where you go.
That's coming up.
So if you want a better life, happier wife, all that stuff, man, optimize these clips before you start working on them. But it can become huge. I mean, these optimized clips can become really big. I hope this helped, so this is just the first step of getting set up. I hope this helped you guys out. And I'm going to jump out of this program now and just give you a recap of getting things optimized. I haven't even started to cut, haven't even started to work on shortcuts, but I think this is enough for now. I think just getting set up and getting in here is enough for now. I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay, so the moral of the story is you're going to need a pretty beefy machine to run DaVinci with no hiccups without optimized media. And even still, if you don't optimize your media, you're going to have a hiccup here and there. This software just requires a lot of crunch power. So I would say either build yourself your own PC with as much RAM and as much processing power and video card power that you can get, or buy yourself a really high-end Mac or a Mac Pro. I'm not trying to discourage you from using DaVinci. I'm just trying to set you up for the best success. You don't want to shoot just too low and end up being just okay, because I'm running the Ryzen 7 with 32 gigs of RAM, and I'm still coughing every now and then. I'm much, much happier with this performance than I was with my 2013 Mac, but it still is better when I run optimized media. So I wanted to show you how to do that today and get you that far at least, and then maybe on the next video I'll jump into a little bit of cutting and show you some of the neat tricks and tips that are on some of these pages that took me a long time to figure out. Hopefully I can shorten that learning curve for you guys. Hang in there, take care, and enjoy DaVinci. I do love it, and I'm going to do only DaVinci from here on out for a long time until I get really, really good at it. So stick with me and enjoy the ride, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Later.